Hello and welcome to another episode of the Creators series. Authors, speakers, poets, artists, inspirationists all around us. I am Pravin Shekar, an outlier marketer and a raconteur. This series, Creators, is brought to you by Candu, a social entity skilling and employing people with disabilities. Talk to them for relationship mapping, competitor tracking, and connecting with the right decision makers. This series is supported by Notion Press, one of the fastest growing publishing platforms in the world. If you've got a story to tell, Notion Press will help you get it out. Our guest today is Yagneshwaran Ganesh. When I was a kid, watching English movies, I could not pronounce the surnames of a lot of big heroes. So one of them, especially, we just call them Arnold or Arnie. You know who I'm talking about. So let's just call our guest Yag, because Yagneshwaran Ganesh is quite a mouthful. Yag, welcome, welcome, welcome. But I would need to tell a bit more about you to our viewers and listeners. Yag is an eternal optimist, a well-known speaker, and a marketing enthusiast. He's a traveler as well. He coaches and mentors marketing teams from startups to much larger funded companies. Across the globe, he has presented his marketing ideas to be agile, to stay in sync while focusing on the basics, factoring in the ever-changing marketing conditions. He is the right man for today. As we prepare for 2021 growth, he's a multi-book author as well. So welcome, Yak.
Thank you so much, Praveen. It's always a pleasure connecting with you, and thank you so much for thinking of me and having me on your show today.
So we are going to talk about one of your books, which is the revenue marketing book, which is the recent book that you have come out. How did this book come about? This is not your first book. Therefore, I'm quite curious to know why this topic and why this book, Yag.
Right. So this was actually my seventh book, and actually the third marketing book. The way it came up is, we were thinking about different marketing aspects, and this book actually was birthed out of my frustration. Many things in my life, I've channeled my frustrations into either books or podcasts, and that's how some of the good products have come out. So the way it happened is, in majority of the companies that I either considered for or worked with, the way it happened is that people always focused on outputs or outcomes. So people spoke about MQLs, but never worried about what revenue it brought in. They were only looking at optimizing things for themselves and showing that they have worked, and that's how the KPIs were formed. But they were not looking at what it brought to the organization, or what was the collective output. And that's the reason why you also see a lot of organizations having quite a bit of misalignment between marketing and sales, because they are not working towards a common goal. Like, you go and ask a sales guy, what are the top five accounts that you want to close this quarter? They'll be immediately able to tell you. But on the contrary, when you go and ask the marketing guy, like, how many accounts are going to be closed this quarter, they will not be able to tell you the names of the accounts, or they won't be able to think through about it. A sales guy does not even need to look at this, look at the CRM to give you this. So I thought, okay, well, how can we go about this? Can we unify the goal as revenue and start working towards that? Can we optimize everything towards revenue? And that's how the idea of this book was brought in.
Brilliant. Yeah, but that's a classic problem, isn't it? The fight between marketing and sales, the fight between, hey, I'm going to cover my ass and throw so much marketing jargon that you'll drown in it and we are more towards sales. But the question which you ask right up front in your book, which I'm going to ask you around, can we predict the revenue outcome, especially in today's changing clients? Can we predict revenue outcome? Yeah.
Well, the best part is, in marketing and in anything right now, and COVID has proved that we cannot predict anything at all, but we can have a direction towards which we are going, right? So, for example, I know that if I do certain things, like, say, for example, let's say events. I mean, COVID has closed events all around the world, but just think a little bit before that. If somebody is going to an event, they are not going there primarily to go from one booth to another, right? So if you're spending on a 10 by 10 booth, and if you're spending about $1 million, or at least a 50K on that, it goes to waste, because you do that and you might probably get a few business cards, and then people are just throwing it around to get the goodies. That's all it is. When you go back and connect with them, they're not going to take the conversation forward. But instead, if you can invest on building relationships, and if you can invest on building trust, because I always believe marketing is the business of only doing two things: building trust and building relationships. If you can do these two, then it will translate into revenue, it will translate into value, And to answer your question straight, you cannot predict it, but you can take a direction and walk on that direction and keep adjusting on the go.
Beautiful, Yag. One of the other speakers in this creator series is Sharat Sharma. And I asked him the same question. The book is all about mindset. And one of the examples he quotes is people are so motivated and do work so enthusiastically in the wrong direction. While if you keep checking,
Exactly.
if you keep checking, that comes through. But I'm the parent of two kids, and I'm going to ask you a question. Does this book need a parental guidance? Because one of the chapters says hips don't lie. What are you trying to? What are you implying there, Yag?
Right. So, though I love the song "Hips Don't Lie" by Shakira, the interesting thought process about that is, just like your hip, like whatever you eat, it shows up on your hips, right? That's the way marketing is going to be. Whatever you do, the results show up, and that's why I say, you look at certain things, what you're going to do, what you're going to invest on. In fact, it also ties down to one of the oldest principles in the world of strategy and marketing, which is called the OODA loop, where it stands for observe, orient, decide, and act. When you can connect the dots, it happens only when you can look back. So you start something, you go in a particular direction, and after you've invested some time on that, you have a set of users of a product. You go back and see what has happened, and that's where the course correction happens. So the OODAs, observe, or orient, and then decide and act. What it simply means is that you look at what has happened, ask yourself what happened, then so what, now what, and what do I do out of it. So this is the sequence, and if you can implement this, then things are going to be relatively easier. At the end of the day, the beauty about marketing is one of the reasons why I'm also into marketing is it is not rocket science. It is not one of the most difficult subjects. If you can apply a little bit of common sense, that's all it is, right? So otherwise, that's the reason why I stayed away from engineering, stayed away from anything that required a lot of effort, a lot of thought process. Marketing comes relatively natural.
But where we come from, that's a rite of passage. You have to become an engineer, then decide what you want to do.
Yeah, my dad actually pushed me to become an engineer, and that's one area I had to fight with him and say, whatever happens, I'll not become an engineer. I don't want to waste 4 years of my life. I know that's not the direction.
I didn't have that choice. I was the first grandson in the family. My grandmother had decreed. So when the marriage talks came and my father-in-law asked me, Praveen, are you an engineer? I said, no, uncle, I've got an engineering degree. So, but I'm going to digress here. There are a lot of cartoons here, yeah, but you've drawn them yourself. May I ask you why?
So there are two answers that I can give you. The nice answer is to say that, hey, I'm interested in doing that and all. But the realistic answer is I'm a big fan of Tom Fishburne, the marketunist. Okay. So I really wanted the marketunist to do the tunes for my book. And in fact, I approached Tom, and we had a conversation. I just wanted to use about five or six, and the kind of the bill I got, I was like, okay, this is not going to work for me. So the next immediate thing was I could, look at a few tools through which I can create tools. And I just signed up on one of them. It was just about $15 a month or something like that. And I had ideas, and then there were tools, and there were characters present. I just could drag and drop and put in the concept together, and that just happened. And the beauty of a cartoon is that whatever you want to say, you can put it down humorously in a very simple manner, and it communicates way more than probably 10 pages of text.
So you've taken another one of your frustrations and converted them into cartoons.
That seems to be the theme, I guess.
Lovely. At the end, you speak about the revenue marketing framework out here. And for our viewers and listeners, I'd love if you could dwell a little bit on that. You don't have to reveal the whole thing. I'm going to encourage people to go pick up a copy of your book, but if you could give a teaser trailer.
Yeah, more than happy to. So, even the book is actually available for free for people who want to download it on Kindle. So feel free. So the revenue marketing framework was coined as game model. So gather, agree, map, and execute. So this is what game stands for. And basically what it means is this also boils down to the alignment factor which we originally spoke about, right? So when you go back and gather a list of accounts to go after, For example, take a typical account-based marketing kind of a setup, where again, one thing I want to digress and say here is that ABM is not for everyone. Okay, people who have a $10 product, which pay $10 per month, and you cannot do ABM for that because you're playing a volume game. Unless you have a product that is at least $5,000 or $10,000 per month, or that kind of a setup, then ABM makes sense because you're going after a limited set of accounts in your industry, and your marketing is going to be focused on each of those accounts in that particular company or set of people, like say your influencers, your decision makers, and the actual users of your product. So gather is basically gathering the right set of accounts to go after. And then agreeing aspect is where you sit down with your sales team and agree that if these are the right accounts, we should go after. Because these are the guys, frontline guys who are talking to the companies. They are going to be the ones that are closing the deals. So unless you both are in sync with the kind of accounts to go after, it does not make sense at all. Otherwise, I'll pass on a set of leads to salespeople, and they're just going to throw it to the garbage. And another big problem that happens here is a lot of people just pass on, say, an ebook download or consumption of content as a lead to your sales guy, and the sales guy is not looking for it. Somebody who's consumed your ebook versus somebody who has shown explicit interest for your product, who says that now I want to move from a free user to a paid user, or I want a good deal, I want to talk to the salesperson. That conversation is wholly different. So you have to have alignment between what accounts you're going after, and if the sales team also agrees with that. Then mapping comes in, where you're going to go about executing the right kind of programs. So you have to map the right programs to the right accounts, like what you're going to do for this account. For example, let's say you have a podcast. You could use podcast as a tool. Podcast is one of those interesting tools where you don't have direct attribution as to how this contributes to revenue, but the magical aspect is that if you can get some of those interesting people on your podcast and build that relationship with them, because talking to them in a non-sales atmosphere, non-sales context, they open up, the conversation is beautifully built, and from there you go on to the execution aspect. Execution is now okay, what are the pain points and what are the key things that are happening inside those accounts, and how can I really go about helping them. You just say that, okay, let me deploy certain people specifically to this account. It is not just restricted to marketing here. It can also extend to your customer success. Like the moment somebody's onboarded, if they don't know what to do or how to go about using your product, they're going to churn out probably within a month or probably maximum 3 months. So that's where your CS team also comes into play, and you all four teams, like customer success, sales, marketing, and support. All these the four teams have to work together to give that holistic experience. So that's what the model is all about.
Beautiful. So this is called Creators. It's not just the book, but I know about the podcast that you're in. You're wearing that T-shirt as well right now, ABM Podcast. How do you focus on this creativity? You interview, you talk, you curate, you create content. Yag, I would love to dive into your brain to look at your creativity process or creation process.
Right. So as we originally spoke, 99% of all my creations comes from frustration. So so what happened was, back in the day, Manish and I, we used to work for the same company. And the way we connected, sometimes you connect with certain people because you agree on a lot of factors, or sometimes you connect with certain people because you commonly hate something. So between me and Manish, we hated the kind of marketing practices that were going around in the market, and we wanted to change that. And when we looked at what happened was, we started something called Coffee Conversations. We just went about creating this 5-minute video format, putting it out on LinkedIn. It was because we used to meet daily and we used to talk about different topics. One day we thought, let's put a camera to this, and that's how it started. And one of the things that works best for our creativity is that we have an agreement that the day we feel bored about this, we'll stop working on it. So we don't have the push of somebody measuring us daily on how this is going about. And then we did this for about 5-6 months. One day we felt really bored about this. We said, okay, let's drop it for a month or so and see what happens. But the day we dropped, we got a lot of people DMing us and saying, hey, yeah, what happened to that Coffee Conversations? Today is Monday. It didn't come up, is it? That's when we thought, okay, people are actually listening to this. We never really thought about it that way. And then we thought, okay, let's do justice to this. Let's expand on the format. Let's get into specific topics and dive deep. So that's how the podcast format actually came in. So coffee conversations became ABM conversations, right? So the ABM conversation, we thought, okay, it's not just about ABM, the name suggests it's purely about all topics inside the realm of B2B marketing and sales. So that's how it started. And the best part is, as long as it's a topic that Manish and I can directly talk about, we do that. Like say for first 13 or 14 episodes, we never had a guest. It's all about us who spoke on certain topics. But then when we started taking specific topics, like say for example gamification. So when we went into product management and gamification, we wanted to actually get into the mind of Yukai Chow, who is the world's number one when it comes to gamification. Like he has a framework called Octalysis, 8 different factors that affects the way you think and how you use a product. So we thought let's bring him on board. And similarly for each topic, like the moment we thought of Martech, we went to Scott Brinker. And interestingly, because we were in the world of marketing, these people were also nice enough to agree to be on the show, and it started coming up really well. In fact, the last week we did a recording with the founder of Marketo, which was also an inbound lead. We were like really surprised, and within a year right now, we see that our podcast is among the top 1% podcasts in the world, and we did not really push it hard at all. We did not really advertise it anywhere, so it just happened in an organic way, and we're very thankful for that.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. Any plans of converting the podcast into a book or related content? I'm asking just out of my curiosity.
Oh, absolutely. We have discussed about it. Repurposing is one of the most important aspects of marketing. And because we have a lot of these guests and we have a lot of these topics, I did think about translating some of these key topics as nuggets into one single book, something like the CMO conversations kind of a setup. But I have not thought through in detail. I think I will look for a common theme to tie the contributions of each of these speakers and stitch together as a book. Yeah, definitely that's something that we have in mind.
One question here regarding your writing process, Yag. How do you go ahead and write? Is there a specific time, a specific zone? Well, I can tell you mine. I'm an early morning writer. I get up and I write and get it out of the way. And then you always have these moments of inspiration. Call me old fashioned, but I always have a notebook and pen with me to document it. What is your process?
Right. So this is again a beautiful yin and yang kind of a combination that Manish and I have. Like he is one of the most process-oriented person, and I'm one of the most least process-oriented or indisciplined person. The way, like even when we started the podcast, the way it happened is I said, "Hey Manish, why don't you come over? Let's record 4 topics." And he said, "Like, what is the podcast about? Like, where did the podcast idea come from? Like, what are you going?" I said, "Forget about everything. Just come. Let's record 4 topics." And then we recorded. He went back. I mean, I'm thankful that he trusted me. And then the next day, I found out like what is the right tool for distribution. How do we use to record like guests from all of that. So similarly, all my writing process is also like that. I just start the revenue marketing book. I think I completed this book in about 2 weeks. So that's how it started. Very randomly, I really don't think there is a writer's block or there is some inspiration. It's just an idea that you have, and then you start expanding on it. And my writing style is very random. It's not that I don't write chapters one by one. Like say, for example, when I look at this book right now, I can tell you I wrote, say, the game model first, and then I wrote the first chapter after that. Then Hips Don't Lie came in, and then suddenly I thought, okay, something is missing. We need to talk about change management, and that's when change management aspect came in. And then, okay, suddenly I was like, okay, we are not talking about MQLs at all. So, like, then when we talk about each of these things, at the end, I look at, okay, what should be the right order? Because it sounds so random. Let's, rearrange these things. So I write randomly, and then at the end, it's more like, picking the right flowers to make it a garden.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Lovely, Yag. One final question. What next? What's coming up from your stable? What's your next book about? Next creation about?
So at this point, the idea is not yet there, but I think there is a lot of content that I have from my podcast and from some of the things that I've been doing right now. And particularly, I'm right now very inspired about 2 things. One is how organizations go about building a narrative, and second is how to go about building a category. Because these two are extremely important. When I look back at my career, what though I have been spending about like 10 years or more in the world of martech. I'm not a tech guy. I'm more of the communicator and narrative builder. And when I look back at the writing, or when I look back at the events that I've spoken at, or the podcast and everything, what naturally comes in is the aspect where we have gone on to build a narrative and the exclusive categories that we have built. Like we did not play where everybody is. We wanted to do something exclusive and then start building things around that. Like just the way any companies, like think about a product like Snickers, right? So Snickers originally thought that they were competing with the likes of Milky Way, but that was not the reality. When they spoke to their customers and they found that people were buying Snickers in the airports just to grab a snack quickly and rush in, so that they would not feel hungry for longer periods from there. That's how they came up with this campaign of if you're hungry, you're not yourself. So that's the way we think. We go about, like, finding what our sweet spot is and what comes naturally to us, which is not so easy to others, and that's how we go about building our things.
Lovely, lovely. Yeah, thank you very much for joining us in the Creators. Viewers and listeners, be sure to check out Yagneshwaran.com. That is Yagneshwaran.com. And Yag, it's time for Yag.com as well. So go check out Yagneshwaran.com for his books, for his bio, for the talks. And well, as he mentioned, this book is available as a PDF on his website. Go show him some love, show ourselves some love, and let's focus on revenue marketing. Thank you, Yang.
Thank you so much. You have a great day. It was such a pleasure talking to you.
Same here.